We are going live shortly.
Okay.
77% of the way live. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Technically Developers Conference. I am Managing Editor Julie Zeglin at Technically, and we're joined here by our awesome first panel of the day. So thank you all for being. Yes, you can see us. We're live. Everything's going great. So I will introduce our awesome panelists, and then I will let them get to talking. So this conversation, we are talking about your engineering career. Do you choose individual contributor? Do you choose management? Big decision. So we know that every great developer will eventually confront this familiar fork in their career road. Do you remain an individual contributor writing code, or do you prefer a management track to oversee a team? Here we're going to hear from both sides of that decision. So our three awesome speakers, we have Jocelyn Harper. She's a senior software engineer at PayPal and the author of A Software Engineer's Guide to Seniority. We have Elliot Pearson. He's the newly minted Chief Operating Officer at Cadalyte. And we have Courtney Wilburn, who is an engineering manager at Elastic. So I'll let you all get to talking. Thank you so much for joining, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, let's get this going. I guess I think it would make the most sense, I think, for us to just get started off in introducing ourselves a little bit more, just giving a little bit of context and some experience and stuff. So I was just going to let Elliot and Jocelyn go ahead and, introduce themselves, kind of just give a, really short, brief synopsis on their journey thus far. And yeah, let's get started.
Yeah, so thanks, Courtney. So Elliot Pearson, just Chief Operating Officer of Cadalyte. Before Cadalyte, I've been there for about 1.5 years. Before that, I was an individual contributor, architect, and also technical manager. So I spent a lot of time as an IC or individual contributor. I worked in education, and then I worked in online advertising. So worked with very large teams, hundreds of people, 100 developers and engineers being on one team. So that's kind of like my background. And I came over to Cadalyte, and I am now running their operations. So similar, but it's more of managing individuals that's actually doing the work.
Cool. Hi, I'm Jocelyn Harper. As Julie already said, I am a senior software engineer with PayPal. I am on the Vaulted Experience team. Essentially means that anytime you use PayPal as a third-party checkout on, say, like Walmart.com or any site like that, you're using the system that I work on. As far as what I work, my career spans, I started my career out of Zip Code Wilmington, which is a coding boot camp 5 years ago now. So my first job was with JPMorgan Chase on their mortgage platform. From there, I went to a small dev web shop in Philadelphia, and I was there for less than a year. From there, I was at Capital One working on their e-bill platform. And then now I am at PayPal. So it's been quite the progression in career, quite the progression in teams, and quite the progression in the product that I'm working on and the number of people that use my product. So right now I'm on the individual contributor track. And then I'm sure people will ask questions or we'll dive into where I'm going to go eventually, maybe. So.
Sure. Yeah. And my name is Courtney Wilburn. I'm, as Julie mentioned, I am an engineering manager at Elastic. Specifically, I work at Elastic Cloud, work in the cloud division. I've been there since August of 2020. And prior to that, I was working for Wirecutter, which is a New York Times company. And then I've also I've been in the field for, I guess, maybe 15 years, 16. Possibly at this point. Self-taught. I was actually an anthropology major in college, and then decided to shift gears a little bit later and after college. So largely self-taught and with a little bit of formal instruction like earlier on in my life, but mostly self-taught before I dove into, and I've been on every side of the stack: sysadmin, DBA, straight software engineering in a variety of languages. So, this is my second go at management after being a CIO in my 20s, and that was an interesting journey. But now I'm back on the management track, and seeing both sides of it. So definitely have some experience there, and hopefully you'll be able to add a little bit of color as Elliot and Jocelyn are answering some of these questions. So all right, let's get right to it. Yeah, I mean, we've all been individual contributors before. So what currently is drawing either of you to your current paths right now? What was the draw? Jocelyn, you want to get started with that one?
Yeah, sure. So my path right now is individual contributor, and the draw for me was just to learn as much technology as I can, especially with the path that I'm on right now at PayPal and our tech stack and all of these really new cool things that are happening, especially in terms of just like refactoring and just system architecture. I feel as though there's just so much I can learn and so much that I can work on, that the timing to go management just isn't right, especially with PayPal, and especially since I plan on being here a while. I feel like I need to manage my timing really well. I'm not saying that I'm amazing and that they're going to promote me to like a manager or a tech lead or anything within like a year of me being there, because it's been less than a year. But I kind of mapped this out within like 2-year intervals. And so for me, I want to learn as much about the products that I'm working on, become a subject matter expert on what I'm working on, before I even think about, kind of bridging that gap into like management. Because I already feel like I do tech lead things, and I think that all of my senior developers on my team do that in terms of projects that they lead. But yeah, I just need to code more, essentially. I need to do the dirty work before I get into management. And not to say that you don't code that much in management, but it is significantly less. So that's where I'm at right now.
So I guess for me, what drives me to be like managing a very large like engineering organization, it's really about kind of like stories like Jocelyn. She actually went to a boot camp, and now she's a software developer. Like, I love hearing these stories, and I get to do that. And I that's like my day job. I get to hear where people are coming from and where they're going. And that's multiple times a day. And it really like keeps me focused and keeps me energized, because at the end of the day, I can write code, but it's always nice to help someone else go build like the future. And that's really where I am in my career right now, is that like I'm training a bunch of like up and coming software developers that will be future entrepreneurs and future CTOs at companies, or even CEOs. And that's the thing that really gets me. And it's so amazing to kind of see that, talking to someone 6 months from now, or even 2 years ago, and seeing where they are now. It's just amazing to see that transition.
Awesome. Yeah, I think for me, it was, I don't, and I think people would probably be surprised to hear that I don't really map my career out. Like I never really have like had any sort of larger grand plan to be a manager. I think if you'd asked, or at least do it again, I think if you'd asked me 2 years ago if I'd planned on going back into and doing management, I probably would have laughed. Yeah, I would have laughed at you. I would have said, like, are you serious? But I think for me, it was a matter of thinking about, like, I decided that it was the time for me to be the manager I wish to see in the world. I think I'd had some experiences where, I felt like if there had been an opportunity for me to make the types of changes in people's lives, like that you alluded to, Elliot, that I was in a position where I could facilitate that. And I wanted to see what that was like again. Which isn't to say that like I will never be an IC again. I think that's I think like, I feel like there can be some room to shift back and forth depending on how you feel and where you are. I certainly do miss, I've largely been in, doing infrastructure and DevOps type work for the latter half of my career. And there are, absolutely times where I miss playing with YAML all day. But I do think that it can, there are all these kinds of deciding factors, and they're definitely, I think, either way, you have to have a love and a passion for what you're doing. So, it sounds like both of you are like really in that space. So like, was there any like, for either of you, was there any specific moment or any, any kind of like, aha moment that made you say like, I think I'm on the right path, or I want to do something different, or this is what seems right to me, that kind of like that informed your decision to be where you are?
Yeah, for me, this happened very early in my career. I was very, I guess I kind of overestimated my skills a lot of times. And so you throw anything in front of me, I would be like, yes, I can do that. So I worked for the Community College of Baltimore County. We needed to build a website where we were combining all of the experiences, and we only had like 10 people editing the website. And now we were like, oh, we combine the website, information is stale. We need hundreds of people to update it. So we had to build a content management system, and we were originally going to get a group of consultants to do it. I looked at the price tag and said, that's way too much. I can do it. Give me some resources. It gave me resources. And so they were like, you're going to have to manage them. And it wasn't until after I kind of came up with this proposal that I realized, oh, wait, I got to manage people. And so that was kind of like my moment of, I wasn't really planning to be a manager. I just kind of fell into it. So.
Awesome. Jocelyn, do you think there was like a moment or any sort of, aside from, the decision that you said you made to like, continue to get your hands dirty, did you have any sort of, you also mentioned that you sort of have these sort of 2-year career, sort of chunks of planning. Was that, moment was there like a cutoff moment in the 2 years where you were like, oh, wait, this is what I want to continue to do versus like, I think I'll shift gears?
Yeah, I think it's because I find so much joy in what I do. I really love coding. I love figuring out really large, complex problems. I like collaborating with all of my teammates. And I'm really damn good at what I do. So I need as much time for me personally, learning the skills and learning the ropes as I possibly can. I feel as though I'm in a really good position right now, going on 5 years, going on a bit more. I know it's less than y'all that have been in the industry, but I strongly feel as though I need to work the time, and then this is for me personally, and then I feel as though, okay, then I can be in a position to manage people in their careers and things, because I feel like I'm still really early on, and I feel as, especially with work right now, especially at my company, that I just don't know enough to be managing people. I feel like I would be a really good manager in the future, but just not right now. I just love coding so much, and I like contributing that way. So.
Sure. Yep. Sure. So, which I guess this kind of leads me to, another question about that, which is like, I think sometimes, ICs, people like other upper management, senior leadership will see an IC who is just like crushing it, right? Let's just say, Jocelyn, that like in a couple of years that, you're at PayPal and someone's like, oh my God, you're crushing it. But like, you feel happy on this track, to IC and on the IC track that you're on. What do you feel like, do you feel like ICs get pressured, or pushed, high performing ICs get pushed into management when it's not necessarily, what they feel comfortable doing? And like, how do you, what do you think that, we can do to sort of make a long-term sustainable, ecosystem for individual contributors?
Right. So that's a really good question, because I feel like it all depends on your company, because some companies just truly do not have to individual tracks. They don't have a track where you can be a staff engineer or a principal engineer or an distinguished engineer. So when you think of corporations as just like historically, it's like if you're doing really well, the first thing they want to do is push you into management. And I'm really adamant that not everybody needs to be a manager, because I've had really crappy managers in the past that should not have been managers or people managing at all. So the thing is that I believe companies need to first kind of carve out spaces, carve out that individual contributor track. And, you know, for people that, because there are a lot of software engineers that don't necessarily want to go into management. They want to stay on the path. And I know 2 really great engineers that are on my team right now that absolutely do not want to do like people management. But the thing is that as you go farther up the ladder on individual contributor, I want to say senior on, is that you still do have like people management aspects anyway. And so in my book, I say that it's like, you know what, sometimes it's just a matter of like not doing the paperwork. Like managers have to do a lot of the paperwork, and ICs kind of have to do like the people management and the mentoring and things like that. But then they get to pass them back off to their manager in that sense. So, you know, I feel like I've been really fortunate to be able to stay on my track, but not a lot of companies, especially smaller companies, have a track to be an IC and have that like actually planned all the way out. So.
Sure. Yeah, Elliot, I don't know if you could speak to, like, you know, since you've been in sort of senior leadership for some time, if you could speak to, you know, how people can effectively, or how companies can effectively bake in, you know, tracks for individual contributors to, you know, stay where they feel comfortable and thrive professionally there. If there's any insight that you could provide. Oh, you're muted. Let me.
I was very fortunate. I actually came over. It's now Yahoo. Well, it's AOL, and then became Verizon. Now it's Yahoo. So they actually had 2 well-defined tracks of being an individual contributor or being a manager, and then they would have like these equivalent levels. I think one thing that they did very well was allow people to kind of try it out, to say like, okay, you want to try to switch to management? Let's get you on that track to kind of go this way. I think that in the past, it was very rigid, where, you know, you go from, you know, software developer to senior to tech lead, maybe architect, and then manager. And that was when I kind of first got into the career. But now it's like these defined tracks. And I think some things that companies could do is allow people to kind of go back and forth, because we are now in a world where you're not going to be doing the same thing that you did like 20 years ago. You're going to be changing careers, and you should be able to have, you know, kind of vertical mobility and also kind of horizontal mobility. And I think when you look at someone that is very, very senior, being like a technical fellow, they should actually have mobility to become like a VP of engineering or whatever level that's equivalent in that organization. And I think that's something that a lot of companies can look at. The bigger companies like the Googles, the Facebooks of the world, they got it right. And I think they can kind of model that at a smaller level for whatever size their organization is.
No, that's great. Thank you for that insight. Yeah, no, it definitely seems like there's, you know, like a, you know, I certainly wish there were, you know, wasn't necessarily that sort of pressure sometimes, but I think sometimes the leadership attributes that it takes someone to be a good technical leader and thrive as an IC, sometimes, you know, for someone who isn't necessarily looking at what the person is doing from a technical standpoint day to day, those attributes can sort of be mistaken for, oh, that means that this would automatically translate into this person being a manager, and that's not necessarily the case. When it's like, you know, they may enjoy, like, as Jocelyn mentioned, the mentorship aspect, the helping someone grow professionally, grow technically, but they don't want to necessarily do the paperwork. You know, sometimes the paperwork and, you know, the busy meeting schedule is not necessarily a part of the draw, right? I saw this quote on Twitter that, like, some of this conversation like reminded me. I was doom scrolling as we are wont to do these days on Twitter, and I saw a tweet that said, "Not all leaders are managers, and not all managers are leaders," and that really like resonated with me. So I kind of wanted to get y'all's thoughts on that a little bit, and just kind of see like what y'all thought about that too. Just that really like it came across my timeline yesterday and just really stuck out. So I wanted to get some thoughts on that.
You can go, Elliot. Yeah.
I will say this, and Jocelyn called this out. Sometimes you're going to get bad managers, and it's really about like trying to manage people's day to day. And you can kind of get into trouble like doing that because you can actually micromanage people. The reality is that when you look at leadership can come from anywhere. It can come from the top down. It doesn't matter. What good leaders do, regardless if they have people like reporting into them or not, they'll do the right thing. When they go and say like, hey, I need to go talk to this product owner, or I need to go talk to the software development team because I noticed this problem, they're just identifying the right thing to do and then executing. And that's the reason why that's kind of a difference between like a manager and a leader. Sometimes you'll have people that are technical fellows that are influencing and leading all the time, and they will never have anybody reporting into them. And that's how I see that's the distinction of the difference.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I would find myself as a leader within my team and also outside of my team, especially with my presence on social media, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, I get a lot of the fulfillment of management outside of that. So through my podcast, through my book, through just interactions on Twitter. So I don't necessarily need to do that. I feel as though I've set myself up for leadership of my own right. So that's probably why I don't feel the need to get into management too soon to go into that. But I definitely agree that not all managers are leaders. Sometimes we have to admit that there's nothing wrong for a manager to just be okay at their job. So I'd rather have an okay manager than a bad manager, so it's okay for a manager to just check in on you, do the weekly one-on-ones and make sure everything's okay. And just like, see how's your day going? How's your new project going? Things like that. I don't vibe well with managers that micromanage at all. So I'm really fortunate that now I have management that kind of just lets me do what I need to do. And then every 2 weeks, they're just like, hey, is everything okay? But that's not to say that the path to communication isn't open. But yeah, just to go back to that, not all managers need to be leaders in that case, and not all individual contributors need to be leaders either. I think when we actually talk about these two aspects, I think we always think about like the golden child of software development and management, like they're doing this and they're doing that. And it's weird to say that, I'm a content creator on that side too. So I guess I kind of fit that. But sometimes it's just okay to just like do your job, collect your paycheck and go home. Yeah.
Sometimes you need someone who's just a steady hand and can kind of lead things to remove blockers and keep steering you into open water, right, into clear water, as opposed to someone who is like micromanagement. It can be a real micromanagement, at least to me, is a symbol of trust either not existing or breaking down at some point. And if someone is micromanaging you, or you feel compelled to micromanage, it seems like you've either lost that trust relationship with the person that reports to you, or if you're on the other end, the other person didn't help build a trust relationship, and so they feel the need to watch or very closely keep track of every movement you do. I think that trust is that important element there, and that makes a leader is like giving people the freedom to do whether it's technical leadership outside of a management track or inside of a management track. It's about allowing people that space to thrive, and being the person who enables that growth, either technical growth or growth as just other types of professional growth. So yeah, that's I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. It seems like we're almost at time.
Wow.
I know time flies, right? One, last thing, I guess. So we have an audience full of engineers, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who's attended so far, and really appreciate the comments on the side. Looks like it's been a colorful chat on the side. Do y'all have any advice for folks who are sort of considering, furthering themselves along the individual contributing track or moving into management?
Yeah, Jocelyn, did you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I would say that first of all, it all depends on what company you're going to be at first. So you need to identify and talk with your manager first. Like, always talk to your manager about what expectations and goals that you have with yourself, because your manager should be able to put you on the correct path to get whatever you need done. So essentially, I would definitely say talk to your manager, because essentially you want to know, like, what things do I need to do in order to get to be a whatever the next level is up from your engineering path is, or perhaps management. And they will provide you that information, or they should provide you that information to let you know where you need to go. And then, as Elliot said earlier, that you should be able to be flexible. You could try being an IC or try being a manager and being like, no, you know what, this isn't for me, and being able to vertically slide over to the next position. But it's really important, and I always say this, talk to your manager, let them know what your goals are first, and then realize if it's not achievable at the current company or even on the current team at that company, that there are options outside of that. Oh God, Chris linked. Okay, yeah,
plug in the book. I was gonna give you a chance to plug your book and podcast if you have another second after that.
Oh yes, yeah, sure. So I have a podcast. It's called Get Cute Podcast, GIT Cute. It's on all podcasting platforms. So go ahead, and yes, I just launched the book 2 weeks ago now, something like that. Is it been a week? Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks.
And it's called Get Cute, a Software Engineer's Guide to Seniority. It's an ebook, and y'all can probably find it through that technically link. Yeah, that's it for me.
Elliot, any parting thoughts on any advice for folks looking to think about their futures?
Yeah, so everybody that's an IC is a problem solver. That's basically what you're getting compensated for, is to solve problems. If you're thinking about going into management, you probably should talk to other people that are managing, and talk to people that are just kind of a technical manager, a senior director, a VP of engineering, just to kind of make your informed decision. If you decide to stay an IC, and that's perfectly fine, it's nothing wrong with that. I think what you really want to do is diversify your skill set and always stay relevant. So things that people ask me, like, if I should learn one thing, outside of like the things I know now, most people know like JavaScript and backend and front end stuff. I say, like, look at things like blockchain, look at data engineering. Those are skill sets that are going to be very, very relevant over the next 5 years or decades. So that's my parting advice.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you so much. I don't know if folks are, if we're fully at time, or if we have any extra time, but there's a question in the column, and Sheena Bryant had a question asking, how important is technical aptitude to the ability to be a good technical manager? The skill sets for ICs and managers are distinct and different. Do you need to be a rock star engineer in order to be a rock star manager? I mean, if I was going to take a stab at this question, I would probably push back at the framing of the use of rock star to begin with. I think there's a lot that I think a lot of companies promote, that this rock star, ninja, 10x developer type attitude, that it can do some it can have some really some effects on the workplace that aren't necessarily positive. And I think there's something about thriving that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a rock star. I don't know if y'all can see some of the background of my thing back here, but I'm a huge Prince fan. And he's by all intents, was a rock star, right? But he had a good band with him too. He had, Wendy Melvoin, and and Matt Fink and, a lot of other talented musicians there that wouldn't really necessarily be considered rock stars either, but they were supportive, and the Revolution had a very successful run as a band for Prince. So I think if you think about what your strengths are and your capabilities are as a person, you can take that into, certainly your technical skill informs how you will be as a technical leader, but there isn't necessarily a one-to-one relationship between the two. Sometimes people are better at, sometimes you can be a good player and not necessarily be a good coach, so you can, and sometimes you can be both. Y'all have any thoughts on that? Or
I did. I didn't want to run over. I know we.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Zeglin again. Elliot, throw out your quick thoughts. I'll move everyone to the next session.
Yeah, no worries. So when we talk about technical aptitude, when you do have great technical aptitude as a manager, that actually helps build trust with your kind of reports. It also helps you remove blockers. I think the one thing that is very important for a technical manager is that they have to have good soft skills. One is like active listening. And so when you have that combination of understanding the tech, understanding what the engineers are going through, and you can actively listen to solve the issues that are coming up, that makes a great manager, not necessarily a rock star. I do kind of push back with like Courtney. So that's kind of like my parting thoughts. So.
Cool. All right, I need to wrap us up. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jocelyn, Elliot, and Courtney, so much for your thoughts. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Please meet us in the next session. TD Bank is going to be talking about artificial intelligence. So see you at the rest of the developers conference.
thanks everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.